Hello. So I figured it was high time that we do another installment of our reading of The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. I'm gonna try my best to get through this before Halloween. If not, we might have like a post-Halloween reading. That's what we've done. Not quite halfway, but oh, you gotta love my bookmark. Sequest. Did you guys ever watch Sequest? I did. I think I had a crush on one of the characters in it. I don't really remember because I think I was like 7. What does it say? 1993. That might have been when Sequest started though. So I would have been, simple math, I would have been 6. That's a pretty good guess, Lindsay. It was 6 or 7. It had a dolphin on it. Because what goes better with outer space than a dolphin? Than sea life? So, anyway, I found this whenever I know you're tired of hearing about the stairs. I'm tired of talking about them. But that's where I found this. So that's what it is. Whenever I was ripping out the stairs in my house, this was under the old staircase. So I guess some kid in the 90s in this house liked Sequest, just like me. So I haven't had a cigarette in several hours, so I'm going to smoke. And I'm going to drink my redneck tea, which is actually, this one's not tea, lemonade. My redneck tea. No judgment. I'll just judge myself. Oh, three-legged cat. I was just talking about that. I haven't seen you in several days. Three-legged cat, everyone. Come here. Oh, three-legged cat. Yeah, so you're not gonna like it if I pick you up. It's okay. It's okay. Oh God. Okay. Well, she hops around. Here, let me see. Ooh. See how she has her leg tucked up? It's been like that since she was a kitten. She has like absolutely no use of it. It never comes down. I don't think it can. I've thought about catching her to cut the nails on that paw because, like, you know, they don't wear at all. But I don't think she would ever let me touch her again. It might be worth it for her to be in a better place. I don't know. I don't know, cat. Did you come for story time? Just stay out of the way. Classic Zippo. So we left our heroes at chapter 9. Wow, this is really bright. Chapter 9. Okay. And from deep in the dry earth, a lost voice whispered, "Mounds, shroud." Out of the darkness, something rolled, rushed, flapped. A long strip of mummy cloth snapped out into the sunlight. It was as if the very tomb itself had stuck out its old dry tongue, which lay flat at their feet. The boys stared. The linen strip was hundreds of yards long and might, if they wished, lead them down into the mysterious deeps below the Egyptian earth. Tom Skelton, trembling, put one toe out to touch the yellow linen strip. A wind blew from the tomb, saying, "Yes." Sorry, my reading is very disjointed because I smoked during it, but that's how it is. "Here I go," said Tom, and balancing on the tightrope of linen, he wandered down and vanished into the dark under the burial chambers. "Yes," whispered the wind coming up from below. "All of you, come next, and another, quick." The boys raced down the linen path into darkness. Watch for murder, boys, murder. The pillars on both sides of the rushing boys flashed to life. Pictures shivered and moved. The golden sun was on every pillar. But it was a sun with arms and legs, bound in tight with mummy wrappings. Murder, a dark creature struck the sun in one dreadful blow. The sun died. Its fires went out. The boys ran blind in the darkness. Yeah, thought Tom, running, sure. I think every night the sun dies. Going to sleep, I wonder, will it come back? Tomorrow morning, will it still be dead? The boys ran on new pillars dead ahead, and the sun appeared again, burning out of eclipse. Swell, thought Tom. That's it, sunrise. But just as quickly, the sun murdered again. On each pillar they raced by, the sun died in autumn and was buried in cold winter. Middle of December, thought Tom. I often think, the sun will never come back. Winter will go on forever. This time the sun is really dead. But as the boys slowed at the end of the long corridor, the sun was reborn. Spring arrived with golden horns. Night filled the corridor with pure fire. Boys riding bicycles, a lot like the boys in this story. Those are young kids to be out by themselves. I'm old. The strange god stood burning on every wall, his face a grand fire of triumph, wrapped in yellow and golden ribbons. Why, heck, I know what that is, panted Henry Hank. Saw him in a movie once with horrible Egyptian mummies. Osiris, said Tom. Yes, hissed Moundshroud's voice from deep in the tombs. Lesson number 1 about Halloween. Osiris, son of the earth and sky, killed each night by his brother Darkness. Osiris slain by autumn, murdered by his own night blood. Really, it's kind of like music to go along with this since the story is about little boys. Anyway. So it goes in every country, boys. Each has its death festival, having to do with seasons. Skulls and bones, boys, skeletons and ghosts. In Egypt, lads, see the death of Osiris, king of the dead. Gaze long. The boys gazed, for they had come to a vast hole in the underground cavern, and through this hole they could look at an Egyptian village, where at dusk food was being placed out in pottery and copper dishes on porches and sills. For the homecoming ghosts, whispered Moundshroud somewhere deep in the shadows. Rows of oil lamps were nailed to house fronts, and the soft smoke from these rose up on the twilight air like wandering spirits. You could almost see the haunts shifting along the cobbled streets. The shadows leaned away from the lost sun in the west and tried to enter their houses. But the warm food steaming on the porches kept the shadows circling and stirring. A faint smell of incense and mummy dust wafted up to the boys, who looked out upon this ancient Halloween and the treats being set forth, not for wandering boys, but for homeless ghosts. Hey, whispered all the boys, do not lose your way in the dark, voices sang in the houses, to harps and lutes. Oh, dear sweet dead, come home and welcome here. Lost in the dark, but always dear. Do not wander, do not roam. Dear ones, come home, come home. Smoke curled from the dim lamps. And the shadows stepped up on the porches and very gently touched the gifts of food. And in one house, they could see an old grandfather mummy being taken out of a closet and put at the place of honor at the head of the table, with food set before him. and the members of the family sat down to their evening meal and lifted their glasses to drink to the dead ones seated there, all dust and dry silence. Chapter 10. Okay, so we started at chapter 9. So we read 4 chapters of, So we read 4 chapters per video. So 9, 10, 11, 12. So let's go ahead and mark so I know where to stop. There's 12. And we'll read it. And it has a picture. Okay. We will put our ancient dolphin bookmark right there. Okay. Chapter 9 has a bird mask. Quick now, come find me. Mound Shroud's voice, laughing, called them on. This way, no this. They ran along the slender ribbon of mummy wrapping, deep into the earth. Yes, here I am. They turned a corner and stopped, for the long linen ribbon wound across the tomb on the floor, up a wall to wrap around the feet of an ancient brown mummy, which was propped atilt in a candlelit niche. Shuddered Ralph Bingstrom, dressed in his own mummy costume. Is that a real mummy? Yes. Dust shifted from under the golden mask of the mummy's face. Real. Mr. Mound Shroud, you? The gold mask fell to clang like a bright bell on the floor. Where the mask had been was a mummy's face, a pool of brown mud caked by blasts of sun. One eye was glued shut with spiderweb. The other eye cracked forth tears of dust and a glint of bright blue glass. Is there some boy here dressed like a mummy? Asked the muffled voice beneath the shroud. Why me, sir? Squeaked Ralph, showing his arms, legs, chest, and medical bandages it had taken him all afternoon to wrap himself in, mummified. Good, sighed Mound Shroud. Grab the linen strip, pull. Ralph bent, took hold of the ancient mummy bandages, and yanked. The ribbon unraveled, up around, to reveal the great ancient reptile, nose beak, and flaky chin, and dry, smiling, dust-powdery mouth of Mound Shroud. His crossed arms fell loose. Thanks, lad. Free. No fun being wrapped like some old funeral gift for the land of the dead. But heist. Quick, boys. Hop into the niches. Stand stiff. Someone's coming. Play mummies, boys. Play dead. The boys leapt to stand, arms folded, eyes shut, breaths held, like a frieze of small mummies cut in an ancient rock. Easy, whispered Mound Shroud. Here comes a funeral procession. An army of mourners in gold fine silks bearing small sailing ship toys and copper bowls of food in their hands. In their midst, a mummy case carried light as sunshine on their shoulders of 6 men. And behind that, a fresh-wrapped mummy with new paintings on its linen vestments and small gold masks hidden over the face. See the food boys, the toys, whispered Mound Shroud. They put the toys in the tombs, lad, so the gods will come play. Romp, rustle about, and run. Children happy in the land of the dead. See the boats, kites, jump ropes, toy knives. But look at the size of that mummy, said Ralph, inside his hot linen bandages. It's a 12-year-old boy in there, like me. And the gold mask on the boy's mummy face, doesn't it look familiar? Pipkin, everyone cried hoarsely. Shh, hissed Mound Shroud. For the funeral had stopped. The high priests were glancing around through the flickering torch shadows. The boys, high in their niches, squeezed their eyes tight, sucked in their breaths. Not a whisper, said Moundshroud, a mosquito in Tom's ear. Not a murmur. The harp music began to play. The funeral shifted on. And in the midst of all the gold and toys, the kites of the dead, there was the small 12-year-old, fresh new mummy with a gold mask that looked exactly like Pipkin. No, 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 thought Tom. Yes, cried a mouse voice, tiny, lost, wrapped away, kept trapped, wild. It's me. I'm here, under the mask, under the wrappings. Can't move, can't yell, can't fight free. Pipkin, thought Tom. Wait. Can't help it. Trapped, shouted the small, wee voice, trapped in picture linens. Follow, meet me, find me at... The voice faded, for the funeral procession had turned a corner in the dark labyrinth and was gone. Follow you where, Pipkin? Tom Skelton jumped down from his niche and yelled into the dark. Meet you where? But at that exact moment, Moundshroud, like a chopped tree, fell out of his niche. Bang, he struck the floor. Wait, he cautioned Tom, looking up at him with one eye that looked like a spider caught in its own web. We'll save old Pipkin yet. Sly goes it. Sly goes it. That's what it says. Slide and creep, boys. Sst. They helped him up and unwound some of his mummy wrappings and tiptoed down the long corridor and turned around the corner. Holy cow, whispered Tom. Look, they're putting Pipkin's mummy in a coffin, and the coffin inside the sarcophagus, Moundshroud supplied the jawcracker. A coffin in a coffin in a coffin, lad, each larger than the last, all done up in hieroglyphics to tell his life story. Pipkin's life, or whoever Pipkin was this time around. This year, 4,000 years ago. Yeah, whispered Ralph. Look at the pictures on the sides of the coffin. Pipkin 1 year old, Pipkin 5, Pipkin 10, and running fast. Pipkin up an apple tree, Pipkin pretending to be down in a lake. Pipkin eating his way through a peach orchard. Wait, what's that? Moundshroud watched the busy funeral. They're putting furniture in the tomb for him to make use in the land of the dead. Boats, kites, tops to spin, fresh fruits, should Pipkin wake 100 years from now hungry. He'll be hungry all right. Good grief, look, they're going out. They're closing the tomb, Moundshroud had to grab and hold Tom, for he was just jumping up and down in agony. Pipkin's still in there, buried. When do we save him? Later. The long night is young. We'll see Pipkin again. Never fear. Then, the tomb door slammed shut. The boys yammered and yelled. In the dark, they could hear the scrape and slosh of mortar filling the last cracks and seams of the final stones as the final stones were shoved into place. The mourners went away with their silent harps. Ralph stood in his mummy costume, stunned, watching the last shadows go. Is this why I'm dressed like a mummy? He fingered the bandages. He touched his clay-wrinkled ancient face. Is that what my part of Halloween is all about? All, boy, all, murmured Moundshroud. The Egyptians, why they built to last. 10,000 years they planned for. Tombs, toys, tombs. Graves, mummies, bones, death, death. Death was the very heart, gizzard, light, soul, and body of their life. Tombs and more tombs with secret passages, so none might be found. So grave robbers could not borrow souls and toys and gold. You are a mummy boy, because that is how they dressed for eternity. Spun up in a cocoon of threads, they hoped to come forth like lovely butterflies in some fair, dear, loving world. Know your cocoon, boy. Touch the strange stuffs. Why, said Ralph the mummy, blinking at the smoky walls and old hieroglyphs. Every day was Halloween to them. Every day, gasped all in admiration. Every day was Halloween for them too, Moundshroud pointed. The boys turned, and a kind of green electric storm shimmered in the tomb dungeon. The ground shuddered as with an ancient earthquake. Somewhere a volcano turned up and over in its sleep, lighting the walls with one fiery shoulder. And on the walls behind were prehistoric drawings of cavemen long before the Egyptians. Now, said Moundshroud, lightning struck. Saber-toothed tigers caught the cavemen screaming. Tar pits drowned their bones. They sank, wailing. Wait, let's save a few with fire. There's a picture on the other side. So I guess one of the boys, it looks like a flaming bush. A bunch of fire. Moundshroud blinked. Lightning struck to burn forests. One ape man, running, seizing a burning branch, and rammed it in a saber-tooth's jaws. The tiger shrieked and fell away. The ape man, snorting in triumph, tossed his fiery branch onto a pile of autumn leaves in his cave. The other men came to hold their hands out to the fire, laughing at the night where the yellow beast's eyes waited, afraid. See, boys, Moundshroud's face flickered in the fire. The days of the long cold are done. Because of this one brave, new-thinking man, summer lives in the winter cave. But, said Tom, what's that got to do with Halloween? Do? Why, blast my bones, everything. When you and your friends die every day, there is no time to think about death, is there? Only time to run. But when you stop running at long last, he touched the walls. The ape man froze in mid-flight. Now you have time to think of where you came from and where you're going. The fire lights the ways, boys. Fire and lightning, morning stars to gaze at. Fire your own cave to protect you. Fire in your own cave to protect you. Only by night fires was the caveman, beast man, able at last to burn his thoughts on a spit and baste them with wonder. The sun died in the sky. Winter came on like a great white beast, shaking its fur, burying him. Would spring ever come back to the world? Would the sun be reborn next year or stay murdered? Egyptians asked it. Cavemen asked it a million years before. Will the sun rise tomorrow morning? And that's how Halloween began. With such long thoughts at night, boys, and always at the center of it, fire, the sun dying down in the cold sky forever. How must that have scared them? Scared early men, eh? That was the big death. If the sun went away forever, then what? So in the middle of autumn, everything dying, 8 men turned in their sleep, remembered their own dead of the last year. Ghosts called in their heads, memories. That's what ghosts are, but 8 men didn't know that. Behind their eyelids, late nights, the memory of ghosts called, waved, danced. So 8 men woke up, tossed twigs in the fire, shivered, wept. They could drive away wolves, but not memories, not ghosts. So they held tight to their ribs, prayed for spring, watched the fire, thanked invisible gods for harvests of fruit and nuts. Halloween indeed. A million years ago, in a cave in autumn, with ghosts inside heads and the sun lost. Mound Shroud's voice faded. He unraveled another yard or two of mummy wrappings, draped them over his arm grandly, and said, "More to see, come on, boys." And they walked out of the catacombs into the twilight of an old Egyptian day. A great pyramid lay before them, waiting. "Last one to the top," said Mound Shroud, "is a monkey's uncle." And the monkey's uncle was Tom. Looks like a witch face. Chapter 11. Gasping, they reached the pyramid's top, where waited a vast crystal lens, a viewing glass which spun slowly in the wind on a golden tripod, a gigantic eye with which to bring far places near. In the west, the sun smothered and dying in clouds sank. Mound Shroud hooted his delight. There it goes, boys, the heart, soul, and flesh of Halloween, the sun. There Osiris is murdered again, and there sinks Mithras, the Persian fire. There falls Publius Apollo, all Grecian light. Sun and flame, boys, look and blink. Turn the crystal spyglass, swing it down the Mediterranean coast 1,000 miles. See the Greek Isles? Sure, said plain George Smith, dressed up as a fancy pale ghost. Cities, towns, streets, houses, people jumping out on porches to bring food. Yes, Mound Shroud beamed. Their festival of the dead. The Feast of Pots. Trick or treat old style, but tricks from the dead if you don't feed them, so treats are laid out in fine banquets on the sill. Far away, in the sweet dusk, smells of cooked meats, steamed dishes were dealt for spirits that smoked across the land of the living. The women and children of the Grecian homes came and went with multitudinous quantities of spiced and delectable vegetables. Then, all through the Grecian Isles, doors slammed. The vast slamming echoed along the dark wind, the temples shutting tight, said Mound Shroud. Every holy place in Greece will be double locked this night. And look, Ralph, who was a mummy, swung the crystal lens. The light flared over the boys' masks. Those people, why are they painting black molasses on their front doorposts? Pitch, corrected Mound Shroud. Black tar to glue the ghosts, stick them fast so they can't get inside. Darkness moved down the Mediterranean shores. From the tombs like mist, the dead spirits wavered in soot and black plumes along the streets to be caught in the dark tar that smeared the porch sills. The wind mourned as if telling the anguish of the trapped dead. Now Italy, Rome, Mound Shroud turned the lens to see Roman centuries where people placed food on graves and hurried off. The wind whipped Mound Shroud's cape. It hollowed his mouth. O autumn winds that bake and burn, and all those world to darkness turn, now storm and seize and make of me a swarm of leaves from autumn's tree. He jumped straight up in the air. The boys yelled in delight, even as his clothes, cape, hair, skin, body, corn candy bones bore apart before their eyes. Leaves burn, change turn. The wind ribboned him to confetti, a million autumn leaves, gold, brown, red as blood, rust, all wind, rustling, simmering, a clutch of oak and maple leaf, a hickory leaf downfall, a toss of flaking whisper, murmur, rustle to the dark river's creek sky. No one kite but 10,000 not one kite, but 10,000 tiny mummy flake kites. Mound shroud exploded apart. World turn, leaves burn, grass die, trees fly. And from a billion other trees in autumn lands, leaves rushed to join with the upflung battalions of dry bits that were mound shroud, dispersed in whirlwinds from which his voice stormed. Boys, see the fires among the Mediterranean coast, fires burning north through Europe, fires of fear, flames of celebration. Would you spy, boys? Up now, fly. And the leaves in avalanche fell upon each boy like terrible flapping moths and carried them away. Over Egyptian sands they sprang, laughed, and giggled. Over the strange sea, rasperous and hysterical, they soared. New Year, a voice cried far below. Happy what? Happy New Year. Mound shroud, a flock of rusty leaves, rustled his voice. In old times, the 1st of November was New Year's Day, the true end of summer and the cold start of winter. Not exactly happy, but well, Happy New Year. They crossed Europe and saw new water below. The British Isles, whispered Mound Shroud. Would you cock an eye at England's own druid god of the dead? We would. Quiet as milkweed then, soft as snow, fall, blow way down, each and all. The boys fell. Like a bushel of chestnuts, their feet rained to earth. Chapter 12. I don't really know what that is. Maybe a witch? But the last one was a witch, and it was more witch-like. I think it's a woman. I don't know. Okay. Now the boys who landed like a downpour of bright autumn trash were in this order. Tom Skelton, dressed up in his delicious bones. Henry Hank, I always want to call him Hillary. Henry Hank, more or less a witch. Ralph Bengstrom, an unraveled mummy, becoming more unbandaged by the minute. A ghost named George Smith. JJ, no other name needed, a very fine ape man. Willie Babb, who said he was a gargoyle, but everyone said he looked more like Quasimodo. Fred Fryer, what else but a beggar fresh out of a ditch? And last but not least, Hackles. Nibley, who ran up a costume at the last moment by simply clapping on a white scare mask and grabbing his grandpa's harvest scythe off the garage wall. All the boys being safely landed on English earth, the billion autumn leaves fell off and blew away. They stood in the midst of a vast field of wheat. Here, Master Nibley, I brought your scythe. Take it, grab. Now lie low, warned Mound Shroud. The druid god of the dead, Samain, fall. They fell. For a huge scythe came skimming down out of the sky. With its great razor edge, it cut the wind. With its whistling side, it sliced clouds. It beheaded trees. It razored along the cheek of the hill. It made a clean shave of wheat. In the air, a whole blizzard of wheat fell. And with every whisk, every cut, every scythe, the sky was aswarm with cries and shrieks and screams. The scythe hissed up. The boys cowered. Humph, grunted a large voice. Mr. Moundshroud, is that you? Cried Tom. For towering 40 feet above them in the sky, an immense scythe in his hands, was this cowled figure, his face in midnight fogs. The blade swang down. Hiss. Mr. Moundshroud, let us be. Shut up, someone knocked Tom's elbow. Mr. Moundshroud lay on the earth beside him. It's not me. That's Sam Hayen. I know I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry. Cried the voice in fog. God of the dead, I harvest thus and so. Wish wash. All those who died this year are here, and for their sins this night we are turned to beasts. Shwoom, please, whimpered Ralph the mummy. St. The scythe zippered Heckle's nibbly spine, ripping his costume in a long tear, knocking down his own small scythe free of his hands. Beast. And harvest wheat, flailed up, spun up around the wind, shrieking its souls, all who had died in the past 12 months, rained to earth, and falling, touching the hands of wheat, were turned to asses, chickens, snakes, which scurried, clicked, brayed, and were turned to dogs and cats and cows that barked, cried, bawled. But they were all miniature. All were tiny, small, no bigger than worms, no bigger than toes, no bigger than the sliced off tip of a nose. But the hundreds and thousands of wheat heads snowed up into scatters and fell down as spiders which could not shout or beg or weep for mercy, but which, soundless, raced over the grass, poured over the boys. 100 centipedes tiptoed on Ralph's spine. "200 leeches clung to Heckle's Nibley's scythe until, with a nightmare gasp, he raved and shook them off. Everywhere fell black widows and tiny boa constrictors. For your sins, take that and this," bellowed the voice, whistling in the whistling sky. The scythe flashed. The wind cut, fell in bright thunders. The wheat churned and gave up 1,000,000 heads. Heads fell. Sinners hit like rocks, and hitting were turned into frogs and toads, and multitudes of scaly warts with legs and jellyfish which stuck in the night. "I'll be good," prayed Tom Skelton. "Let me live," added Henry Hank. All this said very loudly, for the scythe was making a dreadful roar. It was like an ocean of wave falling down out of the sky, cleaning a bench and running away up to cut more clouds. Even the clouds seemed to be whispering out swift and more fervent prayers for their own fates. "Not me, not me." "For all the evil you did," said Sam Hayen. And the scythe cut, and the souls were harvested and fell in blind newts and awful bedbugs and dreadful cockroaches to scuttle, limp, creep, scrabble. My gosh, he's a bug maker, flea squasher, snake grinder outer, roach transformer, fly keeper, no salmon, October god, god of the dead. Sam Hayen stomped a great foot which tread 1,000 bugs in the grass, trampled 10,000 tiny soul beasts in the dusk. "I think," said Tom, "it's time we ran," suggested Ralph, not offhand. "Shall we take a vote?" The scythe hissed. Salmon boomed. "Vote, heck," said Moundshroud. The picture is a field of bugs with stars in the sky and the moon. All jumped up. "You there," thundered the voice above them. "Come back." "No, sir, thanks," said one and then the other, and put right foot after left. "I figure," said Ralph, panting, leaping, tears on his cheeks. "I've been pretty good most my life. I don't deserve to die." "Ha, nah," shouted Sam Hine. The scythe came in a guillotine which chucked the head off of an oak tree and felled a maple. The whole orchard of autumn apples fell into a marble pit somewhere. It sounded like a house full of boys falling downstairs. "I don't think he heard you, Ralph," said Tom. They dived. They fell among rocks and shrubs. The scythe ricocheted off the stones. Samheim gave such a yell as he brought an avalanche down a small hill nearby. "Boy," said Ralph, squelched up, balled up, feet against his chest, eyes tight. "England is no place to be a sinner." Even as a final rain, a shower, a downpour of hysterical souls turned beetle, turned flea, turned stink bug, turned daddy longlegs, scattered over the boys. "Hey, look, that dog," a wild dog, mad with terror, raced up the rocks. And its face, its eyes, something in its eyes. Could that be Pipkin? Said everyone. "Pip," shouted Tom. "Is this where we meet you?" But whoom, the scythe fell. And yipping with fright, the dog, bowled over, slid down the grass. "Hold on, Pipkin. We know you. We see you. Don't scare off. Don't," Tom whistled. But the dog, yarping with Pipkin's own dear, sweet, scared voice, was gone. But didn't echo of his yip come back from the hills. Meet, me. Where, thought Tom. Where? There's a horse on the next page, but that is where we stop. Oh, we're a little more than halfway now. So, thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me read to you. I hope it was relaxing. Whoa, cat just jumped off the rocking chair and made it rock. I will see you next time. Thank you.